When people clock into work, economists are watching. Going back to the 1950s, the change in the number of hours people work has been a warning sign. Before almost every recession, that number has dropped. And today, it's happening again.
The average number of hours worked each week has declined from pretty high levels to, 2019 levels and even maybe a little bit below.
But this time, economists aren't so sure this dip means the U.S. is headed for a recession. Here's why hours worked is a recession indicator, and why this slowdown could be different. Hours worked is basically what it sounds like, the amount of hours per week that private sector employees punch in. Since businesses are more likely to adjust hours before hiring or laying off workers, these changes can signal increases or decreases in overall economic activity.
But if the consumers are spending less, companies are going to start to feel that pressure. They're going to first start to cut hours if they have that ability, because they don't really want to cut workers.
Economists have been looking at it for decades. A scholar in the 1980s said cutting hours in manufacturing was so cyclically consistent that it was a major leading indicator. But despite this history, some think this usually reliable recession indicator could be a false alarm this time, because unusual post-pandemic factors are at work. Today in the private sector, manufacturing, transportation, construction, retail, and hospitality, working hours are going down. The overall average declined to about 34 hours in May. That's down from a peak of 35 hours in January 2021 and is below the 2019 average before the pandemic.
It's hard to argue that the economy is struggling at this current moment. The concern, and I guess which is always the million-dollar question, is why can't you predict a recession or anything like that? And that's because the turning point is it happens very fast.
Growth has begun to slow, or turn negative by one measure. And some employers may be responding by cutting hours, like engine company American Fleet.
They had a huge overtime bill in 2021 and 2022. They were just were flooded with so much demand they couldn't keep up. And now they've cut all those overtime hours, and they're having their workers do sort of like random other stuff and preparing for business to pick up again. But yeah, no overtime hours anymore.
The company said it isn't planning layoffs and it'd do everything it could to keep workers. And other employers are cutting regular hours too. In June, the number of part-time workers who want to work full-time jumped 452,000, the biggest increase in 3 years.
The first thing they're going to do is kind of cut back hiring, and cutting back hiring may necessarily also be cutting back available opportunities for part-time work. And then the next piece would be cutting back hours within the employees that work there already. And then the final piece is letting them go.
But while employers are cutting hours, they're also adding workers, something they don't usually do when layoffs are ahead. In the first half of this year, U.S. employers added an average of 278,000 jobs each month. And in May, there were 14% fewer layoffs than in the average month in 2019.
This has been the toughest hiring environment we've ever seen, and we do not want to be laying people off. We're just going to hang on to them and ride through this.
By riding out tough times with more employees, economists think workers can stop overworking and return to manageable hours. And one study from Washington University in St. Louis suggests many people are working less because they want to.
Maybe expectations about jobs have changed, expectations about work-life balance, working from home. I think those are conversations that we're still trying to work out in the labor market.
Taking the post-pandemic factors into account, the hours worked indicator may defy history this time.
Those make it seem that the decline we're seeing right now is maybe not as ominous as it would normally be.